I know that I'm the only thing holding you up between happy hour or networking, so we will try to get through this so you can enjoy the rest of your evening. It's my great pleasure today to facilitate this panel. Is that echoing too much? With the national thought leaders on the educator workforce issues across the continuum of educators' careers. When we first got our little panel together, I was like, well, do you want to do presentations? They're like, no, we want to do a talk show. I was like, a talk show? Oh my gosh. So I summoned up Oprah, my favorite talk show hostess, and I was like, well, what would Oprah do? And so first of all, she wouldn't have this table. So envision some fluffy orange couch sectionals here, and you're surrounding us. The other thing, Oprah, you know what else she would do? She would give you a brand new car, and there's one on your table. Yes. So if you don't like your car, trade it with your neighbors. You can you can color your stress away, so it's better than a real car. So go to it. All right, you all are energetic. Listen to all this talking. All right, thank you. All right, let's get back to the task at hand. These are great organizations, as I said, and thought partners that support the field. They can be incredibly valuable resources to you in your work. So I want them to introduce themselves and talk a little bit about their organizations and what it means, what they can do for you, why they're important to your work. So I asked them to do the little elevator speech. To quote my friend Vicki Robinson here, when we talk elevator, we're talking a 5-story brownstone, not the Empire State Building. So I will start with that. So Ellen, do you want to start us off?
Okay. Hi, I'm Ellen Sherritt. I am the Deputy Director of the Center on Great Teachers and Leaders. There we go.
Yeah.
At American Institutes for Research. We are a federally funded center that provides technical assistance support to all 50 state education agencies and the network of regional centers that work with them on all aspects of teacher and principal quality. We work to create vibrant networks of states and districts and innovators and nonprofits and entrepreneurs across the system to help them learn from one another, share ideas, identify common challenges and how they've been overcome. And we'd be glad to help you in whatever way we can to bring you into that mix if you're not already, and to share with you what we've learned from our other work.
Rod?
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Rod Lucero. I am the Vice President at AACTE, the American Association of Colleges for Teacher Education. We are in the midst of a leadership transition, as many of you know. Sharon Robinson, our president, has chosen to retire, and on June 1st, we begin with a new CEO and president. I say that only to demonstrate the fact that as Sharon has left, she has upped her expectations for those of us in the office. And what I would say is AACTE is not your grandmother's AACTE. We are rocking and rolling. We are getting a lot of things done to the service of our membership. Our members include 800 of the 1,400 teacher preparation programs in the country. And not only are we advocating here in Washington, D.C., in Capitol Hill, and working with policy, we're also looping back and providing services for our members and for our non-members. The ultimate goal for us is to make sure that we are creating an environment where we can speak as one profession, pre-K to gray. We are all teachers. We are all educators. We don't leave that when we take on another role. When Wes said earlier, I used to be a teacher. He's still a teacher. We're all still teachers as our primary identity. And so as we carry that through, we want to make sure that as a teaching profession, as a profession of learners and the learned, it is our responsibility to create the narrative upon which policy is based. If we work in silos, there cannot be a common narrative, and there will be those who use those crevices to wedge through what we know to be right for children. We are, after all, the experts. Thank Thank you.
I don't know how to come back from that. That was very profound. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Tatiana Rivadeneira, and I am from the Council for the Accreditation of Educator Preparation. And we are an organization that is working to advance excellent educator preparation through an ed-based accreditation process. And we do we do this to ensure the quality of initial licensure programs and advanced program fields. We also do this to make sure that we have that continuous improvement. And what this is about is it's about the future educators that we know that will be standing before our P12 students. We're making sure that they strengthen the student learning of our P12 students. So, thank you.
They're great. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Elizabeth Ross. I'm the Managing Director at the National Council on Teacher Quality. It is a pleasure to be here with such good company on a dreary Thursday afternoon. At NCTQ, we do a whole slew of policy work at the state level, at the district level, at the teacher prep level. We actually came out with our another iteration of our teacher prep review today, so be on the lookout for that, looking at secondary science and social studies programs. We also provide a great deal of technical assistance directly to states, directly to districts, and directly to teacher prep institutions that are working to help make teacher preparation and teacher evaluation, teacher support stronger and better, so that ultimately every teacher has the opportunity to become effective and every student has the opportunity to have an effective teacher.
Good afternoon. My name is Philip Rogers. I'm the Executive Director of NASDAQ, and as I always say, that has nothing to do with the stock market. So it is the world's longest name and has more syllables than most any other name in DC. It is the National Association of State Directors for Teachers, Education, and Certification. Yeah, it's an old organization, it's been around since 1928. But basically our purpose is to facilitate the communication and the collaboration between state offices of licensure. We also have about 60 associate members, which are oftentimes institutions, IHEs, associations, organizations that also belong that have a shared interest. Our members include all 50 states, as well as the Department of Defense schools, Guam, the Mariana Islands, and actually a couple of provinces in Canada. And the facilitation of that information varies in different ways. One of the things that we do is we collect information regarding educators who have had action taken against their certificate for misconduct, and those states share that information with one another and enter the information and then share it so that it makes it more difficult for someone to lose a certificate in one state and go to another state and apply for another certificate. So that's one of the things we do, but we're also very involved in trying to support quality teaching. We have what is called the Interstate Agreement, which is the only agreement between states. We don't use the word reciprocity, we use teacher mobility. But basically the Interstate Agreement allows states that sign to the Interstate Teacher Agreement, and most of them are, there's a few that are not, to agree on a minimum level of what it means to be certified as an educator, minimum. And then states agree to use that in their own certification process. So the Interstate Agreement, the Clearinghouse, other things that we do, I won't take time, but our website is nasdaq.net, and I encourage you to go there. There's several free informations there. For instance, if you wanted to know what is required to become, for an educator who is moving from Minnesota to, say, Colorado, what does Colorado require for out-of-state applicants? That's on their public website. You can go there, you can share that with your students. You can, it's a data map. So there are all kinds of things there, and I encourage you to use that, but I think we'll have more time to share later on.
Great, thank you, Phil. It occurred to me that I probably didn't introduce myself like Oprah. Everyone knows me, right? No, not really. I'm Allison Henderson, and I direct the TIF Technical Assistance Contract, and I've worked with these organizations for many, many years, so I'm really excited to be up here with them. we are going, in a few minutes, I'm going to ask each panel member a guiding question, and then we wanted to leave a lot of time for you to interact with the group. But before we do that, I want to turn to Ellen to talk about this new publication, hot off the press. It's called Investing in What It Takes to Move from Good to Great. And it's very timely. It's a collaborative effort. We're modeling collaboration on this panel. I think most of the organizations up here were part of this, but not only the partner organizations, but teachers and teacher researchers were part of this work, and it's part of the Good to Great collaborative series that the center has been working on. So I just wanted to have Ellen talk about that for a minute.
So we're really excited about the launch of this report. It's the final report of 3 in a 5-year partnership among 10 national teacher quality organizations. It actually initially was the brainchild of the National Network of State Teachers of the Year, and they approached us at the Center of Great Teachers and Leaders to help them to lead this work. And we brought on other key partners, including the National Board for Professional Teaching Standards, Council on Chief State School Officers, NCTQ, CAPE, AACTE, NEA, AFT, and Learning Forward. And thanks. Okay.
There you go.
Hopefully everyone could hear the organizations that were collaborating in this. And we, so there's been a lot of attention to this issue of teacher effectiveness over the past decade, and what we decided to do collaboratively was to, for the first time, do a research study that actually asked effective teachers what they saw as the professional learning experiences that helped them go from good to great. And so we started off by surveying the State Teachers of the Year and National Teachers of the Year, who are part of the NSTOY network, and asked them about experiences across the career continuum, starting at the pre-service stage, and then the novice stage, the career stage, and finally the teacher leader stage. We asked them what really helped them improve their professional practice. And then in a subsequent study, we dug in a little bit deeper in some focus with focus groups with State Teachers of the Year. And most recently, with this latest report, we scaled up the size of this inquiry by surveying board-certified teachers from the National Board for Professional Teaching Standards. So we surveyed over 5,000 teachers, and what we found very much confirmed a lot of what we've seen elsewhere in the literature, and we saw very consistent results between the earlier study of State Teachers of the Year and the National Board Certified Teachers. First, at the preparation stage, it was having a high-quality clinical experience that mattered more than anything else, and within that clinical experience, it was having access to cooperating teachers who were both effective with students and effective with adult learners. That mattered most. Then at the novice stage, unsurprisingly, it was having access to effective school principals and also mentors, both formal and informal mentors that mattered. At the career stage, it was having opportunities to engage in graduate coursework, and in particular in going through the National Board certification process that was seen as most helpful to moving from good to great. And finally, even as teacher leaders, the survey respondents saw themselves as continuing to improve in their classroom practice, primarily by providing those supports that were helpful to the beginning teachers, namely serving as a mentor or serving as a coach. But what was even more important than the study findings was how we went about doing this. It was a collaboration of organizations that in the past haven't always had the opportunity to work together on an issue of shared concern. And we really listened to teachers at every stage of the process. It was initiated by teachers, and we had teacher researchers who were part of the design of the survey and who helped to interpret the results and provide recommendations for policy solutions. Which is important, given how much we know that teachers are feeling very underheard, and how much elevating teacher voice in policies that affect the profession are really key to improving teacher retention and creating this much more kind of dynamic profession that will be attractive to the next generation of teachers as well. And so finally, we decided to not only conduct a study, but to actually make usable, action-oriented tools out of it. So the survey itself is available online for anyone to freely use, but we also created a discussion starter tool that highlights some of the key findings nationally and invites leaders locally to then discuss in their own context whether these national findings apply. And so the vision really is to have locally teacher-led dialogues about how to improve teacher learning at each stage of the career continuum. And so we invite all of you in your prospective roles to please try to make that happen, and I'd be happy to connect with you if there about any ways that we can support you in doing so.
Are you done? Okay. Okay, great. So I'm now going to ask a guiding question, and Rod, we can start with you so we don't have to have the Ellen show. She doesn't speak twice. We wanted to model this panel as one for moving from perhaps competition to collaboration, because we have to all be working together in this field. So the question I'm going to ask the panel is, in order to support educators across the continuum of their careers, it is critical that we remove silos and build meaningful partnerships at all stages. Would you please share an example of how your organization has approached this, highlighting any lessons learned? So, Rod.
Great, thank you. One of the things that we have put together is a clinical practice commission. It is an effort to bring back the Blue Ribbon Panel Report of 2010 and to take it off the shelf, dust it off, and to provide for it operational legs for the field, on the ground. One of the shortcomings of the Blue Ribbon Panel Report was that it didn't necessarily, it gave us the theory and it gave us the ideas of clinical practice, but it didn't operationalize how that looks in a school, higher ed partnership setting. So the commission is made up of 48 educators from across the country, both pre-K-12 and higher ed, who are pulling together a list of 10 proclamations supported by tenets upon which clinical practice is based. The report itself will have 3 different kind of publications with it. One is the executive summary that lists its proclamations. The second is a white paper, and the third is over 350 pages of supporting documents for those of you who really want to dig deep into the research. We're proud of the meta-analysis that's been done around clinical practice. But more importantly, we're proud of the fact that we've operationalized how clinical practice might look for your site. There are sample MOUs, there are sample ways to, conversations about how you could work with the local union, if that's a hurdle, opportunities for governance within a clinical practice. But all of that boils down to something that we all know very much in our hearts and our souls, that true partnership is based on relationships that are mutually beneficial. How are those true relationships built? Face to face in conversation, where all parties contribute to the work and all parties contribute to the spoils and the results of that work, those outcomes. So that's what we've really articulated in the Clinical Practice Commission. That commission report will come out early fall, so be looking for that.
Great.
So that's one of those areas.
Wonderful, thank you. Tatiana?
Yes, and to continue that conversation of partnerships, one of the things that CAPE has that it asks its providers, those who are demonstrating towards accreditation, is to really speak about their partnerships. To have that communication not just at the beginning, but throughout the licensure program, the journey of those future educator candidates. And so providers have to demonstrate that not only is the department or the School of Education, but their professional development schools and districts and all those key stakeholders are there at the conversation when they talk about their clinical experiences, how will the candidates be assessed, what will be the breadth, the depth, the diversity within those experiences. And then also too, one of the next things that CAVE also asked providers to demonstrate is in their program impact. So once those teacher candidates have not only gone through into the end of those licensure programs or program fields, as a provider, are you monitoring the impact of your programs once they're now in service? Meaning you can look at those candidates now making the difference academically and developmentally of those P12 students. Because it's about looking at, if you can determine how they're doing in service, then you can reflect back onto your program and how you can better that for your candidates.
Great, thank you. Elizabeth?
Thanks. This issue, supporting educators across the continuum of their careers, is one that we've been thinking about deeply over the past few years at NCTQ as we've worked to expand our work to include a deeper focus not only on how to strengthen the policies that states, districts, and teacher preparation programs are implementing, but also to look at how those policies can be best set up in order to yield successful implementation. We think strong state, district, and preparation program policy is necessary for a healthy educator ecosystem, but policy in and of itself is insufficient to actually make a difference for kids and teachers in the classroom every single day. One of the spaces where we recently had an opportunity to dive into looking at implementation at the district level was through our inaugural Great Districts for Great Teachers program. And I was so pleased when I was looking through the registration list for this conference here today that many, if not all, of those great districts are in attendance. It was a year-long initiative that we ran that began and ended with teachers. We started by asking teachers to help us identify the features of their work environments which matter most, and then using those responses to take a deep dive into the existing research and expertise to figure out how to measure the presence of those features in a district. After a rigorous year-long evaluation review and 3 rounds of successively deeper analysis, we ended with a level of teacher interviews to ultimately select 8 winning districts out of an initial 120 districts in our sample. Our sample was derived originally from the 100 largest districts in the country, and then on top of that, the largest districts in each state, because there are a few states that don't have one of the largest districts in the country. As you would imagine, as they say, every unhappy family is alike. Well, every successful district is different, and each winning district had a fairly unique path to being named a great district. However, the following commonalities existed across all great districts. Clear, shared vision of how the district policies and practices should support great teachers, and unified top priorities and goals. Additionally, district leadership in each of the 8 great districts was focused on creating a great environment for teachers, with the understanding that ultimately supporting teachers yields better student outcomes. However, although we limited our sample size to large districts, and truthfully that was just based on our internal capacity constraints as an organization, we believe that many of the policies and practices being implemented by the winning districts are applicable to all districts. And we have available an online tool that anyone can use to measure their district policy against the Great Districts criteria, under a similar theory of action to the one that Ellen was describing. As far as lessons learned go, I think it's fair to say we're still thinking through them as we work to develop the next iteration of our Great Districts program. However, it's worth noting that the focus on implementation as a level beyond the policy analysis, for which we're well known, represented an internal pivot for our organization, and we're working to figure out how to incorporate that across all of our policy strands, because we know that it matters so very much.
Go ahead, Joe.
This is a little disruptive idea we're throwing here, because when you talk about cooperation and collaboration, but one of the things that we've been working on for the last couple of years is the model code of ethics for educators. When you think about the importance of quality teaching, one of the things we know, I have on my desk an article by Madeline Hunter. Anybody remember Madeline Hunter? The title of the article is Teaching is Decision Making. Teachers make thousands of decisions every day that relate to the number one thing that relates to stress in their profession: relationships with colleagues, with students, with parents, with the community. When you think of a model code of ethics, we're not talking about a model code of conduct. This isn't the 10 commandments of how to behave as a teacher. The model code of ethics, the way I keep it clear in my mind, is a model code of conduct is like a stop sign when you're driving. There's only one thing you can do to obey that, and that's stop. There's no options. Model code of ethics is like one of those yellow signs that has the slippery when wet. So you have a whole series of decisions you have to make as a driver. How fast am I going? How good are my tires? Am I qualified to make this turn? There's all kinds of decisions. A model code of ethics helps those decisions, teachers make those decisions with partners at AACTE, with partners at the National Network of State Teachers of the Year, and others, NEA. We developed this and now have it out there for folks to use. It's all free, it's on our website. And the idea is, if you have something to guide you in your decisions, it reduces the stress in those relationships with colleagues, technology, students, and parents. So that's one of the things we're working on that we're real proud of, that we think is going to help not just keep people from making bad decisions, but also remove the stress and help teachers have a common language that they can talk to one another about the relationships and the pressures of being in the classroom and having the responsibility as an educator.
Thank you, Phil. And now, Ellen, if you want to wrap up the question.
Sure. So one of the areas that the Center on Great Teachers and Leaders has been greatly involved with is the development of the state equity plans back in 2015, and more recently helping to incorporate those into ESSA plans. And through that process, we were able to encourage states to engage in a really meaningful way with their stakeholders. We helped 22 states with the root cause analysis discussion. Let me just ask, has anyone here been involved in the development of their equity plan and those root cause analysis discussions? A few of you. Okay, so they were really, really fantastic, deep discussions that just got to the heart of the issues as to why it is the case that students from poor and minority backgrounds tend to have less access to effective teachers. And it was a structured protocol that led to really solutions-oriented, positive, but also like deep, meaningful dialogue in these states. And in at least one state, they then took that approach on around the state through a roadshow. And I think I would just conclude this conversation that with bringing us back to these equity plans and the opportunity that I think we have right now. I think over the past decade, there's been a lot of focus on policy that has led to some friction in the field. And what we observed with these discussions leading up to the equity plan development was that there was that everyone really realized that they had a lot more in common than they perhaps had realized, that the goal of ensuring high quality teachers for every single student was one that really had motivated the large majority of people to go into this field, whatever position they had in the field. And so I think as and now we're feeling very hopeful that these plans will continue to be a state priority, seeing them embedded in 14 of the first 16 ESSA plans to be submitted. So I think we're in a very exciting place historically to bring people around the table together to engage in productive dialogue that moves things forward.
Great, thank you. So the panel wanted to leave the rest of the time open to interact with you all. So again, remember we're up here on the couch, you're all nearby. So if you have questions for the panel, we'll take them, or also if the panel has questions you want the audience to address, we can go that way too. So any questions? Oh my goodness. Cindy, I want to call on you if you just.
What did you talk about? I'm happy to take a call.
Yes.
For all of you involved in teacher preparation and thinking about models and standards of quality for those models, what are the emerging models that you're seeing on the current landscape? Because teacher preparation models are diversifying quickly that seem to threaten the standards of quality that you're interested in promoting, that you've all been talking about at the table here.
So I'll go ahead and start. So one of the things that we have definitely seen, again, you know, when we're talking about accrediting schools, college departments of education, the conversation has really increased between providers and P12 professional development districts. And it's a very organic conversation because not only do, you know, the professors, the faculty, they can speak of the notions, the theories, the ideas, but those teachers in P12 can really give those candidates the experience. And so one of the things that happened, and it's not even within the standards, the partnerships that are happening during the licensure programs is setting the seed for when those schools have to come back and look at their impact. And I don't know that that conversation was there before, but it's happening now. And so we don't just stop once they cross that stage, we bless them and release them. It's happening now when they're going into service. They're having the conversation.
I might add that one of the things that we see is our programs that are coming up that are fly-by-night kinds of programs that do not elevate and or amplify pedagogy. That is our science. That is the science we own, and that's where we exert our expertise. So to me, we are very supportive at AACTE along the lines of pedagogically rich programs, whether they're alternative routes or any other route. If they are deep in pedagogy, they practice continual renewal, the continual cycles of improvement, then we're good, because that's our science. It's those programs, however, that, for example, you graduate with your content degree and you take a test and now suddenly you're prepared to teach in quotations. Or even more shocking, you're prepared to be an administrator. Right. So those are the kinds of programs that we resist, because as we all know, you might be a great biologist, but you may not be a great biology teacher. So those kinds of things I think are the important ones, and those are the things that we, as the experts in the field, need to be concerned with, and making sure that we advocate and mobilize around our science, the science of pedagogy.
Anybody else?
Quickly, one of the things that we're seeing that we are very, very concerned about is programs or states walking back requirements and doing so with a stated purpose of increasing diversity. We are critically concerned about the absence of diversity in the field, but there are much better and smarter ways to do it than to remove baseline requirements. So we are very, very wary when we see that happening.
Any other questions from the audience? Yes. Oh, can you use the microphone, please? Thank you.
Okay. One of the things I feel that has really hurt us in teacher preparation programs are people who are receiving online degrees in education. Could you just expound on that or elaborate on that and tell me what your impression is of many educators who get their degrees online and how that impacts traditionally trained teacher prep programs, and speak about EdTPA, the training of teachers that actually have EdTPA as a part of their teacher prep program. Thank you.
So EdTPA is, as a tool, can serve as a useful tool of reflection for candidates. It is not the end-all, nor can any assessment be the end-all of our processes. It's simply a tool in the toolbox. Going to back to something Elizabeth said, when we're looking at our candidates, we don't want to decrease the quality of our candidates coming into the programs. That's that's for sure. We want high quality, but diversifying how we look at those and diversifying the requirements into the programs is a way that we can help to bring more people of color into the profession, quite frankly. So I think at TPA, we utilize it as a tool. Is it the answer? Not any more than PPAT or NOTE or any of the other assessments. It's a tool of reflective practice, and there are others. Some of them are homegrown. Some of you are doing better than a TPA has, quite frankly. So those are the kinds of things that those vendors can help us with, is to think those through a bit.
I think to go a little bit further on a proprietary assessment such as that, again, in the lens of accreditation, we also ask providers to create their own EPP-created assessments along with states. And using those three, from proprietary to state to EPP-created, educational preparation provider educated assessments, that those assessments together create a suite. And that as providers, not only do they establish the validity, but the reliability of those, because we want to know that they are monitoring their candidates throughout the program. And that's been the biggest challenge. I mean, one of the things that oftentimes happens is, you know, we have this EdTPA, for example, assessment, and it meets all the components. And the problem with that is, it's just best practice. Are you going to measure only one time how well your student knows something? No, that's just not best practice. So I think that's been the biggest challenge, of making sure that providers monitor, and that there are those moments of adjustment, and that there's moment of, are you providing resources, and is it a time to counsel? I mean, what is it that's happening throughout? And it has been challenging more so online than in face-to-face or blended. And so what online programs, alternative programs, have had to do is now come up with a different way to do that. And so we are even now at CAPE trying to, you know, we provide ideas, we provide resources that they can think of to say, online or not, we have to be able to, I mean, how can you change something if you don't track it and monitor it, right? So it is a challenge, especially for the online. Anyone else? Would you like to, would you want the mic?
I'm not going to respond about EdTPA and online preparation, but just on the topic of diversifying the teaching profession, since I know that's something there's a lot of interest in. Beyond preparation and certification, it is worth thinking about the long-term view of this and what we can all be doing proactively to really cultivate the interest from the youngest ages of people to go into the profession. So one group that has recently been doing a lot around this is Educators Rising, who are the rebranded Future Educators Association of America, and they're working with high schoolers around the country to help get them the skills and develop their initial interest in going into teaching. And they recently launched standards for what aspiring teachers should know and do, and micro-credentials and a new academy. But they really focus in the school districts that have teacher shortages and that really need more teachers of color, recognizing that that 60% of teachers work within 20 miles of where they grew up. So it's that kind of grow your own model that I think is really worth considering in terms of that long view for diversifying the teaching profession as well.
Great. Any other questions from the group? Yes.
Thank you. And I'm glad you mentioned the word micro-credential. In what ways do you see your organizations as more and more states and districts start moving towards micro-credentials for the self-selected professional learning that's mentioned in your report? Did you see your organizations be able to support districts to make that collaboration and bridge the gap with universities and districts for advanced credits and continuous learning? Could you speak to that, please?
Okay, wait, sorry, can you repeat the question?
Repeat the question? Being a good educator, I will not. However, I will ask anyone in here to repeat what I said.
Micro-credentialing, supporting.
Sorry.
So,
With micro-credentialing, you mentioned the word micro-credential, and we're a districts, cooperative looking at micro-credentials, but we've even had conversations with multiple states across the U.S. in piloting micro-credentials or using micro-credentials in their states for self-selected professional learning or for advancements in their career. So thinking about how we can bridge the gap between higher education and districts who wish to use that knowledge to get graduate credit, et cetera. How do you see your organizations helping to bridge that gap?
Yeah. I mean, so my organization, the Center on Great Teachers and Leaders, we are right now helping. Is this off again?
No, it's on. You're
It's on?
good.
Okay. We serve to connect the research to the policy leaders and then to connect leaders in the field with one another. And so as we speak, I think next week we're convening a couple of states who wanted to learn about how one another have approached this issue to share those ideas. That to date is the greatest role that we're really playing, just as micro-credentials are becoming more and more prominent, helping state leaders connect with one another, connect with others in the field to just share these emerging strategies. I had mentioned micro-credentials just in the context of Educators Rising and how they're using them, which is not, I think, in the context which you're referring to. They're helping to get high school students micro-credentials that would serve almost as AP courses so that they have that credit when they go into college to become a teacher.
I can address this just a bit, particularly on the point related to district and EPP partnerships. That's something that we are actually always looking for good examples of, because we very frequently have states and districts contacting us saying, hey, where is this working well, and where can you point us to so that we can take advantage of some lessons learned. Interestingly, it's generally not in the micro-credentialing context. It's generally in thinking long-term about how to address teacher supply and demand issues, and thinking strategically and creatively over 5 years and over 10 years, which is a challenge when we have district leadership that changes over more quickly than that, state leadership that changes over more quickly than that. But truthfully, a lot of these long-term labor force issues are the type that are only going to be addressed through long-term solutions and through the types of partnerships that set up relationships such that the district and the EPP are working together to say, hey, in 3 years, this is how many elementary educators we think we'll need, and so this is how many it makes sense for us to place in a student teaching placement in a clinical practice experience this year, particularly dovetailing off of Ellen's point regarding the number of teachers that we know that stay in close proximity not only to where they grow up, but also to where they experience their training.
And then to continue from that, as providers, once you have that information, then how do you design your recruiting plan? So then rather than waiting for those students to come to you, you reach out before. And that really has helped a lot, and we're seeing that more and more, again, through the partnerships. It's amazing what has started to happen. The conversation is going beyond, and it's happening before. So it's not just when they're in the Common Core, but now you reach out further. Are they thinking about going to college? And reaching out and recruiting, thinking outside the box.
Bill?
Yep. No.
Nope, you don't. Macro-credentialing doesn't want to address micro-credentialing. Any other questions for the panel? Yes. Oh, hold on. Wesley's getting his workout today. Yes.
Wesley used to move a lot faster.
Thank you. I think as we move toward the future and educating teachers in preparation, when we think of engineers who get certifications, many times beyond their degrees, they may stop with a bachelor's degree and then have certifications that open the door and give them greater opportunity for advancement. I think in education we have to begin to think about running transcripts that are parallel to their degrees and being able to show that they have areas of expertise. When we think of the movement of STEM, how rewarding it would be to a principal to have an elementary teacher that could say, I have a badge in mathematics, or I have a micro credential that shows I have mastery of certain skills, dispositions. I can come into this school and I'm just prepared so much better than your ordinary, traditionally trained elementary educator. But I have this area of expertise, and how beneficial that would be to a principal to say, well, you know, you can teach all of the fifth graders who are preparing for the science fair project, introducing them to engineering at an early age, because a lot of times in our urban areas, our children do not have that experience. Because we know what has happened in the urban areas, many middle-class people have taken flight, and our urban schools do not have the support and resources that they had 30, 40 years ago. So I think we have to begin to think out of the box in preparation of our educators who work in these areas, just to even give them experience, and to say they have an expertise in multiculturalism, speaking the language, doing different things, having those tools on their belt to work in these areas. The preparation would be so much better. But to reward them and say, well, you know, this particular university is running a transcript that is parallel to the one that they graduate with the degree in, and say, these teachers have the expertise based on a badge, based on a micro-credential, but some way of giving them certification beyond that regular degree. But begin looking at helping these teachers move into the urban areas and be successful. Thank you.
You know, I love that you're talking about expertise, and it's one of the things I've written down to discuss. And part of what we have not done well as a profession, thinking again as one profession, is that we do not assert our expertise. And then we have, whether they're political appointees or we have elected officials, legislators in every one of our states, governors, who then are telling us, based on their myopic experience, how we should run a classroom, run a school district. It is now time for us, as the experts in the field, to take control of that narrative and to assert our expertise. Thank you. Now, I'm going to go one step further and talk about money.
All right.
It is time in this country that we are paid then for that expertise. Every time we get a micro-credential, every time we get another degree, we take a leadership role in our schools. We've talked a lot about teacher leaders as a step between teaching and administration. We have got to start talking about pay. And I don't remember the exact statistic, but I believe it's in 32 states, a beginning teacher starts under the poverty level. If you are a person of color coming into the profession in urban or rural America, and you've broken that cycle and gone to college and had that opportunity, and you have the opportunity then to go back and do anything you want with your degree, are you going to go back into teaching that pays you below the poverty level that you just got out of? So folks, we've got to get real, and we have got to be proactive in accessing our legislators, because let me tell you, there is money. In Washington, D.C., there is money. There is a lot of money. We have got to use our primary strategy, pedagogy, and teach people why it is they need to invest in teaching, in teachers, in people who prepare teaching, because it matters for every kid that walks in these streets. We've got to start talking that way, and not sub-optimizing ourselves by saying, I'm just a teacher. Mm-hmm. We are not just teachers. We are teachers, and we matter.
don't know quite how to follow that, but I would say a couple of things. The first one is that, I mean, the time to do what Rod is saying is right now. There are critical teacher shortage areas across the country. This was a topic that came up in an earlier session in this room, and people are talking about it, and all of you, through the work that you've been leading, are in such a key position to be part of that conversation and to explain, I mean, especially with TIF on the topic of pay and investing in teachers, what is it that you've been learning, what's really been working, what hasn't been working, what do legislators and leaders at all levels need to be doing to learn from your experiences and collaborate. But I mean, at the end of the day, collaboration is so critical and can't be underestimated. But we've been talking about the need to collaborate since the 80s. Not me personally, because I was a kid, but I did my dissertation looking at just this conversation back in the day, and everyone was saying it. And throughout the 80s, we need to collaborate more, we need to collaborate more. We definitely do need to collaborate more, but we also do need to invest. And that requires those of you who have been the recipients of these investments to be out there talking about what you've done and why it mattered. And then encouraging others to take bold, innovative action like you've been doing yourselves.
Anybody else want to comment? No? Cindy, might you have a question?
I just want to comment on the micro-credentialing.
Hold on, you need the microphone. Wesley's coming.
I did just want to comment on the micro-credentialing question, and Phil and I have had some conversations about that, and he and I both have been involved somewhat with Digital Promise. I don't know if you all are familiar with Digital Promise, but go in and look them up. They're doing some great work and beginning to gain traction on becoming more formalized in both the support and the offerings that can happen rather than just sort of being out there about micro-credentialing. Since we were in California in January, I've been a part of some other stuff, and we're very far behind the rest of the professional world in micro-credentialing because it's been going on now for some time. Digital Promise was actually funded by part of an act of Congress some years ago. But there's a lot going on that may influence this whole business of both information dissemination, who's participating in certification and preparation, and how it's occurring. And it ain't the way that we've all pretty much done it or had it done to us in the past. Learning Forward has a project with 2 states that's very well down the road to change their certification practices and rules to include micro-credentialing. Digital Promise itself is working with 6 other states for that very purpose. I'm not sure what that all means for down the road, how we certify teachers and what credentials are and what is evidence-based and what is not, and where's the collaboration piece. It certainly speaks to professional learning in a way differently than we've done in the past because there is some self-determination, it's targeted, it happens faster, it must be evidence-based. But down the road, in response to your question, we're behind other professions, but we're going to catch up quickly. I have a feeling when all of the infrastructure gets in place and people begin to understand both delivery models, the use, and some standardization and how it can help us with professionally developing people and being professionally developed, that it's going to explode.
Thank you. So Wesley's telling me that we're out of time. He's tired from running around the room. So you know, we're live tweeting this entire event, so I guess we're going to hashtag breakdown silos. So I hope my team is out there doing that. I would like to thank our panel members, give them a big hand, and thank you all.